Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 37 with service to Los Angeles, California. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time, secure your podcasting device, and remember, if your dad dies and leaves you a record company and a foster home, that may be a little bit too much information to tell someone you just met on an airplane.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
I am 3 minutes away from buying a guitar, so let's get this rolling.
God, Jeff, if I was actually on that flight you just described, I'd be hitting like my call button so fast.
Oh my god. Well, boys, this week we are talking about the 80s cartoon known as Jem, or Jem and the Holograms if you're nasty. But before we dive into some 80s style and rock ballads, it appears that there's a mysterious record producer who has come aboard our flight looking to sign some hot new talent.
Yes.
Our guest is a comedian, writer, and the co-host of the pod Ledom, a week-by-week episode recap podcast for America's Next Top Model. Please welcome J.W. Crump. JW, thank you so much for joining.
Welcome.
I feel like I want to ride in on a motorcycle shaped like a guitar now that you've set me up.
We are without a doubt. I wrote this in all caps. We are talking about this for at least 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Keep in mind
about the aerodynamics.
For the folks who are listening, this is a 22-minute and 15-second episode that we're talking about for 4 to 5 hours conservatively.
Oh, you can have a dissertation on, I mean, I'll get into it, but there's also 3 different cuts of the episode that I'm going to talk you through, so get ready.
Oh my god.
Well, okay. He's got a PhD in JEM.
Yeah.
and I do want to clarify the reason I needed JW on this podcast is because I have literally watched him give a dissertation on Jem.
Yeah.
It was a combined dissertation comedy show for Jem, and I want to believe it was a PowerPoint on anime transitions. Does that sound right? Is that you were talking about like the ranking anime transitions, including
it wasn't
like
a
when Sailor
PowerPoint
Moon
because
turns
how
into...
dare you? It was a full it was a fully technical show.
It was a Google presentation. Let's be very clear.
It was a full immersive experience like Sleep No More. Oh god. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone better suited to talk Jem, and we're so glad you're here, JW.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to talk about. I listened to a bunch of your episodes, but I most recently finished Pretty Little Liars, and I didn't realize how much I remembered that pilot until you were describing it. And I was like, it's the opposite of the Jem pilot because nothing happens in the Pretty Little Liars pilot.
Everything happens in this pilot.
I don't know what you're talking
about. And then like every 5 seconds, you're like, we're in another scene? How does Jem do it?
Well, Rich, before we have your question of the week, I wanted to bring the podcast on a little bit more of a serious note, just for a minute, and recognize that right now the WGA is striking. JW, we were just talking about how you were picketing earlier today, and we just want to recognize that this podcast, the TV Pilot's License, does stand with the WGA. And, you know, we're supporting what they are doing. We're not going to be using today's episode to inform folks because, let's be honest, we're 4 dum-dums when it comes to union stuff.
Whoa. You were absolutely speaking out of turn about JW right now.
I did not sign off on dum-dum. I'll say this. If you want to find out more, there's a lot of great... there is misinformation out there, so do your research on this. I'm pre-WGA, but I will be joining the union and after the strike probably. And one place you can do if you're really interested in it is you can go to entertainmentcommunity.org, and that is a fund where you can donate to help. You can specifically pick the category television and film, and then you can donate, and help people out in this time who are, striking so that everyone, including myself, including other writers, has a secure future.
Yeah, kind of just going off what JW said there, for those who may be familiar with the old Charity Actors Fund, that is now just the Entertainment Community Fund. So go support artists in this time. We take time each week to give you background on the showrunners and writers who make these shows what they are. We're going to keep doing that. So I don't know, support artists right now, support art. Rich and I are going to stop doing all really bad impressions of studio head figures until the strike is over.
That's right. It's our prize pig, and we want you to know that we're putting it aside to show solidarity.
And we will make sure that all the links to associated materials are in the podcast description, as well as the YouTube description. And I might even learn how to throw them on the screen. So if you're a visual human being, you can see it. I'm going to learn things during the strike. Well, thank you so much.
Geoff gets iMovie.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that little bit of information, JW. Rich, let's move on to you. What is your question of the week?
Well, this is my first time watching Gem, surprisingly, even though JW did such a great job giving an impassioned spiel on the show. A lot of the show obviously reminds me of G.I. Joe and a lot of the other toy-based, like the Toy Cum TV show, basically, or reverse of, that particular era, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, etc. I want to know, do you guys have anything, JW? I know you have specific stuff about Gem, but do you have any collectible items from shows of that era? And what is it? Oh, the smirk on Geoff as he looks back through his childhood bedroom in his
mind. What you got, nerd?
As our resident nerd of this podcast, it's really funny. So last week we did Star Wars. I have a unopened box of every single re-release of the 90s versions of Star Wars action figures.
Oh, okay.
I did get it quoted 10 years ago by someone, and they gave me a really fun number. As long as my parents have not thrown that out, I'm doing great. But Rich,
oh man, I've got such bad news for you, bud.
Yeah, Rich, to answer your question about like more of something that we're familiar with our childhoods, I believe there is a box somewhere in Boca Raton, Florida, that has almost all of the different Zords from Power Rangers in the 90s, leading up to, I think, when they got lost in the jungle. I don't know. It's been 30 years of Power Rangers. That was a wild time.
As a huge Power Ranger fan, I love the idea of a season just called Power Rangers Lost Jungle. And it's truly them just lost. And like, I wish we could teleport out of here, but we cannot for some reason.
It's a bubble season. It's a bubble season.
It's just a bunch of kids from the valley haven't used survival skills and really struggling.
It's just Naked and Afraid. It's Power Rangers Naked and Afraid.
Oh my God. I'm now just thinking of that.
I'd watch that though.
I don't know if anyone here watched the super dark, like, recut Power Rangers that, like, was on YouTube a couple of years ago, and I am just thinking of that now, and I'm going to be watching that after we finish recording today, 100%. JW, what about you as our guest?
Yeah, if you're talking 90s, and Rich also knows that I collect vintage action figures, so I'm looking at a wall that's just like a waterfall
just
of
pick
things.
One at random.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a lot of Sailor Moon stuff.
Okay.
And the nice thing about Sailor Moon stuff is there are so many bad versions of action figures, because when America bought the rights, they were like, how inexpensive can we make this? So all of them have like messed up eyes and weird body proportions. So all of them have this like uncanny valleyness to them.
Wait, that's amazing.
I think that's my favorite thing about them. There's this great guy, I'll give him a shout out. If you're in New York, there's remember that place Turnstile? It's like within Columbus Circle, Rich. It's within the subway. It's all these kiosks and stuff. Tommy's Figures. I believe it's Tommy's with a Z Figs on Instagram, and he's sold me a bunch of Sailor Moon stuff, including like the Italian action figures, which that's really cool.
So, I mean, like, obviously you have so much, people love things that are wrong, and things that are just like, you know, bent out of shape or like just weird proportions and stuff like that. Like, this is going to be a significantly more jockey version of this, but I have there's like a pretty infamous baseball card that came out in the 80s, where this player named Billy Ripken got a prank pulled on him when he was going in for his photo shoot for the baseball card, and someone wrote "fuckface" on the bottom of his bat, and no one knew, or like no one told him, and he
made its way to the card.
Yeah, no. Here, I'm trying to find it right now. I think I have it like right here. I'll try to find it in a second, but yeah, it is. It made its way. They eventually stopped production once they realized the mistake, but there's still a bunch of them that are out there, and I bought like a reprint of it, just because I think it's extremely funny.
I can't believe no one noticed in all the stages of how it made it to a baseball card.
That is truly amazing.
That's kind of like, Rich, there's an NBA Mark Jackson card from the early 90s where it's like him dribbling down the court, and then sitting courtside on the card are the Menendez brothers.
Yes. It was yeah, it was, and not only that, they pinpointed the date, and it was after they killed their parents. So well, yeah.
You gotta relax. You gotta take in a game.
Yeah, you gotta think of something else.
You gotta spend all your dead parents' money. Them's the rules. Oh yeah, here's the card. I don't know if you can see it all, but there it is on the bottom of the bat. It says "fuckface" on it.
That is amazing. So funny.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
But to jump in with my answer for that, it's I was big Pokemon pilled, big Pokemon brained.
Oh yeah, I think everyone here probably has at least a pack or two somewhere in there.
Oh, for sure.
My god, binders of them. It is upsetting how much
Do you have any expensive ones? Do you have any like that original Charizard situation?
I don't know if I have an original, but I do have a holographic Charizard somewhere. I don't know if it's like the original ones are like in Japanese or something like that, right? And I probably just have like the
sure, but I still think there's ones that are rare that are in English.
Who can say?
That's amazing. Well, Max, what about you to round us out?
So in terms of stuff from the era we're talking about today, I was at an older cousin's wedding when I was really little, and we were like at the house the day of the wedding, like, oh, we've got some toys upstairs for Max to play with, so he's not a nuisance and a terror. And they were all like original 1980s Transformers toys. And they're like, oh yeah, you can just keep them.
That's so cool.
So that was really fun. A thing that I did not appreciate or understand when I was like 5 years old. It is also just insane to me that I'm pretty sure Orson Welles' last movie is playing a giant robot planet in the Transformers movie. And it's like, this is how he went out, playing a talking planet. In terms of stuff that's relevant from our
If you've never seen that movie, would recommend watching. It's wild.
Yeah, it's probably going to come up several times throughout this podcast today. In terms of stuff from our episode today, I'm going to out myself as an only child here, guys. So there were definitely Pokemon cards as well as Beanie Babies that were collected. A lot of Beanie Baby figurines.
Did you get the infamous Princess Di one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've got the Princess Di bear. It was in like one of the little acrylic boxes because you gotta take care of your shit. I had like the America bear, the Canada bear. Like I had little boxes for all the bears when I was a kid.
Look at you with the United Nations of bears.
So I have a collection of the Beanie Babies, but just the ones that came in the Happy Meals.
Oh,
so it's the tiny ones because we couldn't afford real Beanie Babies, so we got like the teeny beanies.
Yeah, oh my god,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So I love those, but yeah, oh man, Beanie Babies, that takes me back.
Well, Rich, thank you for the extremely nostalgic.
I love marketing. What can I say?
And I am sure that we will be getting even more nostalgic throughout the entirety of this episode. With that being said, folks, if you did not hear me the first time, we are doing Gem and the Holograms, or just known as Gem. If you want to watch it before you listen to this podcast, I watched it on YouTube, but you can also find it on Tubi. And let's go through a quick synopsis. As a small town girl catapults from underground video sensation to global superstar, she and her 3 sisters begin a journey of discovering that some talents are too special to keep hidden.
Wait,
That's a weird way to describe the
Yeah.
plot. Where's that from?
That's from IMDb.
wait, hold on. Okay, so they're referring to LA as a small town, and then her 3 bandmates who are not her sisters, famously.
Well,
no.
no.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
One is her sister, and she
Wait.
got shit from her dad when he died.
Oh,
But
yeah?
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
And in fairness about the small town thing, you find ways to make LA feel smaller. You
Oh my
find your
God,
little
Max.
communities
Oh my
with your
God.
God damn it, Max.
Max, stop being from LA as your personality.
God damn it. You don't shop at the Silver Lake Trader Joe's one time.
All right. Well, Max, with that synopsis, can you tell us a little bit more about what went into making this show?
So today we are talking about the pilot of Gem, or Gem and the Holograms, titled The Beginning, which aired on October 5th, 1985 in just syndication. There's no channel associated with it. It's children's TV. It was everywhere. And we're going to be talking about very important things today, like Reaganomics and cocaine, but mostly a writer by the name of Christy Marx. So Marx moves to Los Angeles to pursue dreams of being a writer, but not just any kind of writer, a comic book writer. And Marx actually gets her start in the comic book business after a chance meeting with Roy Thomas, who was at that point the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. And she goes to see him speak, and she gives him a copy of a Conan the Barbarian story she had written. Thomas is super impressed, and she actually gets this story published and gets hired to write comics for series like What If and Red Sonja in the late 70s. This comic work leads to her actually being a staff writer on some Marvel animated TV series, including the new Fantastic Four. That's the name of the show. It's the new Fantastic Four. It's not a new Fantastic Four. As well as Spider-Man and Spider-Man and his amazing friends, all in the early 80s. From there, she goes on to work for G.I. Joe. And we're now going to have to do a little pivot here and talk about a company called Sunbow Entertainment. Sunbow is an animation studio owned by the advertising agency Griffin Bacall. And they are a client of Hasbro's in the 1980s. And what they do is they make toys and then they make cartoons to sell those toys. And this partnership found success with shows like G.I. Joe and Transformers. Told you that was going to come up again, Rich. And now they're working on a companion piece. Like if G.I. Joe was like the macho boys playing soldier show, they want a companion piece. And they start coming up with these new wave rock and roll dolls called Gem and the Holograms. So Marx gets handed the reins for the animated series version. And basically they give her a few key pieces, things that are set in stone that can be part of the toy collection. And that is Gem, Rio, the 2 bands, the Holograms and the Misfits, the computer, and the earrings. Everything else in this pilot is an original creation of Christy Marx. So everything having to deal with Starlight Records and the Starlight House, the antagonist character of Eric Raymond, these are all Christy Marx ideas. But everything else, you have to thank Griffin Bacall Advertising and Sunbow Entertainment for. This is a
Friends of the pod.
Today's episode is brought to you by Griffin Bacall Advertising. If you have a toy you want to be made into a cartoon, call Griffin Bacall Advertising.
Incredible.
It's funny, when we were preparing for this, I was trying to think about, like, are there examples of this kind of damn it, I'm going to say synergy. This kind of synergy happening.
It's a good name. It's a well-named character.
Vertical integration.
I was like, oh, I've got some great ideas. And then I realized they're all like 20 to 25 years old. I'm sure there are newer ones today, but this run here is basically equivalent of like Digimon and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh all in the late 80s, late 90s, early 2000s. But with actually no, Pokemon had a good amount of original music too. Anyways, enough about me. I'm just bantering. Let's get some rockin' going.
Well, I'll say this. I think if that was, first of all, I'm gonna feel more useless than I was gonna be because I have the DVDs, which has an audio commentary on this. But you honestly said so much of what Christy Marks on the audio commentary said that I was like, well, there goes all those notes.
Yeah, I'm a Marxist.
Oh my god.
That's what her
and I'm a
fans
Christian.
call themselves. One thing I think they do today with dolls and toys is now there's a web series. So there's I know there's a doll line called like Rainbow High, and there's a web series because every so often, because they need writers for them, you'll see notices and stuff for that. So I think now it's less TV show, more 5 to 10 minute episodes that are YouTube or whatever it may be.
That makes more sense.
That's like our version of it.
We do
I should
have
also
like
note just really quick.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Oh, I was going to say really quick, just noting the toys themselves. They all did come with cassette tapes that featured real songs from the show. So there was that cross promotion there. And we have a little bit of a rivalry too. So at the same time that these Gem dolls came out, Mattel also released a collection called Barbie and the Rockers.
Boo.
And I don't know if we're going to see them later this summer. Greta Gerwig, come on the pod, let us know.
These corporate pigs. they saw the magic that Gem had in her eyes, completely unrelated to the precursor of Josie and the Pussycats, and they said, "What about us?"
So funny. One thing I'll say that's interesting, because I do think it's fascinating how much control the creator got. And in the audio commentary, she talks about how they used code names and original names of the characters before. Like, so she's like, I'm looking at my scripts and they have different names. Because originally Jim was originally named Misty.
Okay.
And her normal, the Jerica of it was Morgan.
His name Ash.
Yeah, exactly. And then Misty became just the letter M. And then because they couldn't trademark a single letter, M became Jim. And that's literally why.
That's amazing. I love that so much.
Yeah, not before the James Bond people. I'm sorry.
Are y'all ready to rock out and talk a little bit about the cartoon of Gem?
Yes.
Well, rather than a cold open, we just get the intro of Me and My Friends Are Gem, and holy shit, I've never been more into a TV show right away. I'm just like, yes, let's go. I watched this first thing this morning, and I didn't even need coffee. I was like, let's go.
And we learned two very, very important things right off the bat. Gem is truly, truly, truly outrageous. And Gem is my name. Music is contagious. One else is the same.
JW, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that I realized the theme song's first, but in the actual first opening scene, y'all were talking in Pretty Little Liars about how they never give you the names of any of the characters.
Oh my god, I'm so glad you brought this up.
The opposite happens in the first actual scene of Gem, where they're like, you're going to know these 4 characters' names because we're going to chant them over and over with a close-up on each character. So
literally in my notes, it says, this is the exposition I fucking need in every television show we ever do.
Yeah, this really...
everyone's name for me to repeat at least 20 to 30 times.
This really catered to the Ritalin youth before we even knew that was going to be a thing.
So we do just for a little bit of exposition for those who might just be tuning in and are like, what the hell are they talking about? We roll up to some big premiere. It might be a concert. It might be a movie. Who knows? But we see the Gem Mobile, which I am so pumped about. And we'll talk about how sick of a ride that is in a little bit. But we get all these chants of all of the band numbers. And then we take one of the most dramatic turns I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Pretty Little Liars, I know you're still doing your current season. Write this shit down.
Yeah.
Because basically we get you might be wondering how I got here. I remember how it all began with the death of my father. Are you fucking kidding me?
Wait
that's how
Wait till
This is
you
a
idiots see
children's
this.
show.
We're going from happy to sad immediately.
Yeah, PLL, if you want to do a fucking 5-minute flashback sequence to a completely different color palette for the rest of your episode, this is how you do it.
My favorite thing is I know if no one's ever seen the show and I can get them to minute 1 where there's this tone shift from cheering movie premiere to rain funeral. Not only funeral, but a rainy funeral that's completed. Like the worst part of the funeral. Everyone's like, well, I've got to finish this. What happened? This is for 5-year-olds.
So
imagine learning about death as a child from Gem and the Holograms.
You know when you're watching a toy commercial and the dad dies?
yeah. And this was like pre-90s, like Disney just getting off on killing dads and moms. Like this was setting the tone. Disney probably learned something from Gem and we're like, wait a minute, people connect with dead parents. Let's write some shit right now.
Don't you remember the classic board game Can't Wake Daddy?
Oh no. Well, after this funeral, we get to meet a few of our characters.
Once that shit's out of the way.
Once dad's in the ground and can never be woken.
Jesus.
So we meet Mr. Raymond and we meet Rio. Instantly, first thing, I don't know how old Gem is supposed to be. We never really talk about it.
It's
in
Pretty
the show.
Little Liars all over again.
Yeah, but I assume that she is old enough in the eyes of Mr. Raymond to be a creep. Because I'm getting weird vibes from him immediately. I don't even need to know he's a record executive. I just know I don't trust him immediately.
Yeah, so this is where we find out that she inherits just a bonkers combination of things. A music label with a giant building in the middle of LA, and then house for wayward girls. I believe that's how they described it. I don't remember the exact.
No, they just call them straight up foster girls. It's a home. For foster
it's a foster
girls.
home. It's a foster home.
It's so I'll say in the plot of the show, you'll never have a show that talks more about the foster system than Gem and the Holograms, because not only are all of these foster kids, but you'll find out that the reason Jarek refers to all of the other holograms as their sisters is Kimber, the redhead, is her sister, biological younger sister, and I believe she's 18, so Jarek is like 20 or whatever.
Okay.
Aja and Shayna are her and Kimber's foster sisters that they grew up with.
Okay. All right.
So,
that's how that's what the intro or the
there's no one in this
describing.
There's no one in this cartoon that has living parents.
Okay.
Like, because you'll find out
Mr.
her mom
Raymond's
is just also dead.
It's like Mike.
Oh my god. Yeah, I think that, if there's one thing to sort of like put a little small like, oh, that's not cool, is we find out a lot about Gem and not about her bandmates, and it very much treats it like the for my Broadway nerds, this feels a lot like Jersey Boys, where we get a lot of information about Frankie Valli, but don't learn much about the rest of the band for the first half of the show.
Jeff,
The rest
name
of
the
the season
bass
doesn't
player in
matter.
any band. Name the bassist and the keyboard player in any popular band.
Jimmy Bass.
Well, Queen changed theirs out like 3 times, so which one do you want me to name?
Yeah, people care about vocalists, lead guitarists, and drummers. That's it.
It's true. It's
very true.
It's why U2 has Bono and The Edge, and then like Jim and Jerry. I don't know the other two guys. Like neither of them have cool names.
So I'm going to ask a very important question about Rio, because we meet Rio. Do we think the curtains match the drapes? Is that purple hair natural?
It's a cartoon.
Yes.
It's a cartoon, baby. It's all natural.
Absolutely.
100%.
I love that this is true of every cartoon that I've ever seen. One thing we decided on, because this show is like, we're going to give everyone very natural, diverse skin tones.
Yeah,
you're going to be able to tell that, but baby, everyone's got wild hair. Everyone you'll meet. Yeah, they'll let a secretary have like bright fuchsia hair. And I'm like, guys, we didn't need this diversity of hair color.
And
This
wear
was
arm
Doug
warmers.
before Doug. Oh my god. So going to this foster home, nothing's been taken care of. Even when Dad was alive, no one took care of this house because the electricity is out.
It was a good thought.
How long do we think it took Jem to put 2 and 2 together that by owning half of a record label, she could possibly support the foster home that currently has 0 electricity? It's just, this part was sort of like driving me mad, is like, wait a minute, you like, there wasn't a lawyer who explained anything to you as far as what's happening?
I love that the person who explains it to her is the housekeeper. Like, fully. I don't think she's named, but her character's name is Mrs. Bailey. She's like a small recurring character, but she's just like, you know, your father used to pay for all of this with the record company you now own half of. And she's like, got it.
Oh, like, right. Money. No, I think we should just keep doing car washes and getting paid to rake leaves off of people's lawns.
Let me say this, though, and this is good writing. I appreciate that they set up that there's no electricity early, so that when there's the big cliffhanger at the end, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why there's a lantern.
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah, these aren't little, like, Dickinsonian children or something.
Is this the first episode that we've covered where we're gonna root for the Nepo baby? Is that what we're understanding here?
I do have that of like, oh shit, we got some inherited wealth and some foster girls. Like, that's our situation now. But
that's
like,
chill.
It's very interesting because then you hear Mr. Raymond's point of like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this record company into the most successful record company in the world. And like, at first when he says that, I'm like, oh, that's a cool goal. Like, yeah, like it's the 80s, right? Like, we're right after Motown. Like, we're trying to bring 80s rock like back. And like, at the same time, then I'm like, wait, why can't he just give her like a few bucks just to be like, hey, you fuck off. I'll send you money. You still own half of this company. And
you're 20 years old.
Yeah, you're 20 years old. You don't need to be involved in this. Just like, go fuck off. And like,
enjoy
I'll
your
have
life.
the Misfits and we'll do great.
Everything he says is like a supervillain, though.
Yeah.
Everything he says is like a supervillain.
Well, yeah, I got there eventually, Max, but at the beginning, I was like, capitalism sounds pretty good right now. Like, this sounds great.
So positive.
It was the 80s. I told you we'd be talking about Ronald Reagan today.
You're right, though. Eric Raymond created the whole series because he could have just been like, yeah, you own half of this. I'll just run it and then give you half of the profits.
Yeah. Eric's a terrible businessman. He could have just taken out all of the competition and just been like, you know what? Cool. I'm just going to send you a check every quarter.
This is the point that I want to make a point that there's so many bad cartoons and so many bad 80s cartoon pilots. And one of the things that I think is always bad is people not giving the voice acting much. And in this show, everyone gives it 1,000,000% with the voice acting.
100%.
Like, the woman who plays Pizzazz, the mean green-haired misfit, the leader of the Misfits, her voice haunts my nightmares. She has the meanest voice in history, and it's fascinating to me that that's a real person.
She could have done Wicked.
They are giving so much. They're giving so much that sometimes the characters' mouths don't move on the screen.
All right, so
look, it was a cartoon made by an ad agency. What do you want?
So I'm going to ask you all a very important question. Would you ride a motorcycle that is shaped like a guitar? Because holy shit, when I saw it, I needed to have it. And I do have a Google search on my computer that says guitar-shaped motorcycles, ?
And I brought out this so I could explain aerodynamics of the guitar motorcycle. And here's where you would sit, like, ultimately extremely uncomfortable. Also, like, it's very neck heavy, too neck heavy for a real motorcycle. I don't know. Look, this is where Jem and the Holograms lost me. Too unrealistic.
Has anything ever been more clearly a toy, though, than
100%.
out every misfit? And again, opposite Pretty Little Liars. He was like, here's the Misfits. Pizzazz, Roxy, Stormer. Everyone gets one I did not know. I've never watched it critically like this before, and I was like, wow, they're just like, here's a toy, and here's a third toy. Don't you want all three of these toys?
Once we get into the Gemmobile too, 100% also a toy. They're just like big vehicle, big Mattel owns, or I'm sorry, Hasbro owns.
Hasbro.
Yeah, Hasbro.
Did they own what was the car
Transformers?
Toys? No, the cars, the little cars.
Oh, Hot
Matchbox?
Wheels.
Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels, yeah.
Yeah. Did they own that? Is that
That's
a thing?
Mattel.
Yeah.
Okay. I would for sure buy a Hot Wheels of all the vehicles in the show.
So we're now in something that I actually think is really important to Gem. And that is the music. Like, I did not, and Rich laughs, but like, I did not expect to like the music in this pilot as much as I did. We have very simple musical structure too. We have really just, few words. We have a chorus. We repeat those few words, and we are unashamed about repeating them. But like, it is catchy. They obviously got decent vocal talent to do it. And we're doing music videos because we have the name of the fucking song and who sang it right there to transport us into that MTV-esque era of like, hey, music videos are a big thing. Here are music videos for children that they can reference to and we can repeat all the time.
Yeah, we needed original songs to put on the cassette tapes that came with the dolls. I need to be very clear here. If you are listening to this episode and you have not watched this show, there are no fewer than 3 breaks for full-length music videos that happen in this show. Like, we cannot stress this enough, that there are multiple points where the plot stops and there is just a 80s mall pop video number that happens. It's absolute insanity. If you want to pause this episode and go watch this pilot and then come back in like 22 minutes, feel free. We'll wait.
And
you could also...
No, 22 minutes of room tone.
Give him 22 minutes, Jeff.
What's really cool is that if you like the music in the pilot, it gets so much better as the series goes on because it just gets more and more complicated, because in the second season they add new band members and you can actually hear that they added instruments to the songs.
That rules.
It's fascinating.
For the audience to know, I do coach a certain exercise class that is under orange lights in my free time. But I am
Barry's
much...
boot camp. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. I am very tempted to make an entire class playlist that is just of Gem and the Holograms as well as the Misfits. Because You'll have
kill
enough
them.
People.
Their heart rate will be too high. You'll kill them all.
I mean, to be honest, it's actually perfect for interval training because all the songs are maybe 45 seconds long.
Yeah, that's actually very true.
Yeah.
So we get this Out of My Way song, and
boy do we.
I also what's that, Rich?
I said boy do we.
Oh, good. So it's super interesting because we then learn about Eric's ruse, right? He's going to put on this battle of the bands, and he's going to stack the deck by hiring a bunch of really shitty bands and then making the Misfits look really, really good.
Honestly, a business
in
genius.
Comparison.
This is one of my favorite lines, Roxy, who is, you'll find out that unfortunately the pilot doesn't give individual personalities, but this is the inkling because Roxy's whole deal is she doesn't care about being good. She just wants to be rich. That's her whole deal throughout the show. And I love that they gave Roxy the line like, yeah, everyone else sucks, so we'll win. And then Pizzazz is like, but we're also good. Like, Pizzazz is like, to be clear, you just heard our song. Like, we're good.
Yeah, it's like the running away from a bear theory. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than your friend.
I just love that characterization that someone's like, but to be clear, we're also talented musicians.
So being devastated at Eric's plan, we find that Jerica returns to the without electricity foster home to a gift of a pair of earrings in which we get our first instance of body horror, not our last instance of body horror in this pilot, where a mysterious woman appears as soon as the earrings are upon Jem's head. JW, I am going to let you take over and explain what coke-filled dream proceeds after we see a woman appear.
So what generally, first of all, for some reason, only in this episode, the earrings also control the wind because the wind opens the windows. I think it's a coincidence. What is happening is that the earrings, as we'll find out later, project holograms. And they're projecting the hologram of a computer in woman form named Synergy. And Synergy is the most 80s a cartoon character could be. She is the bisexual flag, and then like a planet symbol or whatever it is. And she's also got like a deep motherly voice. She is an adult woman compared to these 20-year-olds. And then they show the weirdest scene of Jerrica proving to the audience that she's not physical, not tangible, and she goes, my hands go right through her, and you literally see her animated hands go right through this thing and back, and I'm like, ooh, we were at a funeral 5 minutes ago. What is happening, guys?
We're at a funeral 5 minutes ago.
And like during this, Synergy leads them to this abandoned
drive-in.
Looks like it's a drive-through.
Yeah.
Drive-in, not a drive-through.
Yeah, drive-in.
She leads them to a Burger King. She's like, let's get food.
No,
it's an In-N-Out because we're in the small town of Los Angeles.
Oh my god. No, it isn't. It is a drive-in that becomes a drive-through because...
Well, that's what I was going to say. In my messed up head, so whenever a TV show gives an opportunity for something horrific to happen, if the narrator or the person is not telling the truth, I think of, oh, how funny would that be if it actually happened? So Synergy says you can just drive through this wall. And my
what an
dumb
insane
head was like,
test of fate.
could you imagine if the wall was actually real and then they just drive right into this wall?
They just Wile E. Coyote the girls.
My favorite part is Aja, who's driving, and I like this. She's always the driver. She's characterized later as like enjoying cars, which is cool. And I love that she's like, I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy enough to do that. And Jerrica's whole explanation is, but Aja, I've got a hunch.
I've got a...
And everyone's like, you know what? That's a solid argument.
Fearless leader, or potentially cult mentality, which I
love
we have to
the writer was like, just do it.
Jerrica is still very much grieving at this point. She's not totally thinking clearly, and now she's telling her friend to drive a van straight into a wall.
Also, they did not approach it with any like caution whatsoever. They're like, we're going through it.
Yeah, no, this is why I'm like, could you imagine if it's a real wall and this was all a trick from Eric? But we come to find out a little bit more about Synergy. She was created by Jerrica's dad, and she is an audio-visual synthesizer who also has corporate speak as a name. We'll talk about that later. She is the most horrifying version of ChatGPT that exists in this world today. So I think that... for those Marxists out there, this was definitely a precursor to ChatGPT or Bard, whichever your preferred platform is. But we come to learn a few things, right? We learn about the earrings being they're able to project, as JW informed us. We also
Micro projectors, if you will.
But like, here's the thing. We find out, Jerrica says, I have 2 inheritances, right? I have this foster home. I have half of the record company. Where was any mention of all of this shit? Like, Dad could have left a note and been like, "Hey, BT Dubs, there's going to be a pair of earrings, and like, you'll get them, and then everything will be explained."
Okay, so let me tell y'all. So this is not in the pilot, but later on, Christy wrote the backstory where you see him inventing Synergy, And they actually have a canon explanation, which is it became too good at what it was doing, so her father was worried it would get into the military's hands and cause them to wage wars like we've never seen.
Wow.
And so that's why he kept it hidden.
He will become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
I've written my own fan fiction, which is where Jerrica's dad was the producer on Frampton Comes Alive by Peter Frampton. And this was the talk box sound that then became sentient.
I like both. I like both explanations. Here, one cool thing I found out, because Christy Marks, the writer, got the first names of the characters, but not anything else. All the last names of the characters are names of famous hologram scientists of the time.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that.
How many were there?
Shayna Elmsford and Aja Leaf. All their last names are all famous hologram scientists.
Look, they all watch Star Wars, and then they're like, "This has to be real tomorrow," and an industry was born.
Yep.
God, could you imagine trying to get funding in the 80s? Like, yeah, we're gonna make a hologram.
Can I cut you off real quick, Geoff? Because I bet we skipped over the one thing truly that confuses me. Everything else I'll accept. So they're holograms. So they just, if you haven't seen this show, the main thing is they can also project a hologram over someone. So Jerrica's going to become the idea.
Are you talking about the body horror bit?
Well, not yet. So also her father randomly leaves them instruments, clothes, and a full-ass car that already has the name Jim on it, because clearly it was a toy model. But I'll give you instruments and car, whatever. Why the hell did he leave them a wardrobe? That's not something they needed for anything.
And I love that they said one of the characters touched the costumes and were like, they're real.
These are real.
Yeah, and you can purchase them with the dolls too as an add-on. All of this is part of the big commercial. The Rolls-Royce Rocket Roadster, you could buy that. The earrings were a toy that you could buy. You get the wardrobes for your dolls. All of this is a commercial.
The earrings are such a perfect the toy. If you're into this show, you're getting the earrings
100%.
Easily.
I would have ate the earrings by mistake.
The jagged star earrings.
Max was a class action lawsuit waiting to happen when he was a child.
I would be remiss to say that there was not a scene where Synergy switches people's races and appearances, which is just bananas. It is entirely like, and then the girls are commenting and being like, oh, like now there's a bunch of beautiful versions of us, and like they all look the same. And then one of them was like, I think she said like, oh, now there's a funny version of us. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, this is horrifying.
This is the same year as like the We Are the World video. Like, come on, cut him some slack.
Oh, so racism was solved, Max,
That's
back
right.
in the 80s? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, we had a big concert.
Just like in this episode.
Oh.
It's all coming together.
Well, and talking about a big concert, let's go to the Battle of the Bands. Because,
which was honestly pretty poorly attended.
Yeah. So we get this moment where Eric's about to unveil the Misfits have won, and then we get our second banger of the episode, which is Only the Beginning, which just, once again, this music is awesome. I'm rocking out to this. And Eric could have just been like, cool, so the Misfits still win because they won they were here, they were registered for it. But we get, what is it with executives and gambling away the future of their organization?
This seems so unhinged.
I adore this moment where Howard Sands, who becomes a recurring character in this series, just walks up and he's like, I'll sweeten the pot. And that's basically his actual line. Like, you know what? I'm bored and rich. So if they win, I'll give them a movie contract, shrug, and also a mansion that I have a map to.
I mean, I there is nothing about this scene that makes me think if I had just like a dumb amount of money that I wouldn't do this exact thing, because
Sure.
like that's so dumb. It's so stupid. And also when we skipped over like a pretty important part for me, which was the limp lizards playing, and then them getting
The
absolutely
limp lizards.
railed by the crowd. That was like I've never seen such harsh negativity in a children's show before. It was hilarious.
But a few years later, the Limp Lizards rebrand as Sonic Youth and go and have a very successful career.
That honestly, I guarantee you they were based off of them. It was so clearly what the look was. But so there's I have the DVDs, and the pilot's slightly longer and way better quality than you're gonna find. There's weird purple graininess to
then
some
on
of
the
the
Roku
footage on
channel.
TV. Yeah.
How dare you?
What?
I scaled through Roku City to find that pilot.
And the biggest change that I noticed was that they announce a couple more bands that lose, including one called the Leatherettes, that are all women in like leather outfits.
Oh,
which is a strong choice. But also in the DVD version, they don't boo for anybody. They only cheer for everybody.
Oh.
And I found it fascinating when I watched this. That I was like, oh, they changed it because maybe literally they were like, kids won't get that the Misfits got the most cheers. We have to boo this full band before them.
Kids today don't understand the applausometer.
It was 1985. It's new technology then.
Also, we learned that Jim can just slash Jerica because now she's projecting as Jim. So now she's got a Jim over her, but she projects a Jerica, which imagine you were watching yourself for the first time. Whoa.
That's horrifying.
But also the holograms can't talk. So she literally just goes like, she invited us. And then Jerica appears and everyone's like, that is Jerica.
Yeah, and she's waving.
Oh man, I misinterpreted that scene. I thought this was a look over there, and then she ran around the park over to the stage to meet Eric
that is
Raymond.
kind of it. That is kind of it. That definitely screams like we haven't figured out how to make this work yet. Just print it.
Also, just so y'all know, Christy Marks read a show Bible, and the longest part of it, I've taken a peek at it before, the longest part of it is the rules of how holograms work. Now, plenty of writers threw it out the window, basically, but she was like, it can't go around corners. She has to be in the same room as it. It's light projection. It's not physical.
Wow.
It can't speak. And she follows those rules, but I do think it's funny that she's just like, anytime she uses it, she like touches her earrings. I'm like, there's a full ass audience watching you. And isn't it a little sus that you're like, Showtime synergy? And then a woman appeared.
Wait, okay. So you mentioned that the holograms can't talk. There is the scene that we're going to come up to where she projects behind her, like off the cliff, if you know what I'm saying, and talks to Rio. So did she break her own rules, or is it like figured out?
Actually.
Like maybe
she didn't break her own rules. The studio broke the rules. Well, no, I think so. Let's get there.
Yeah,
this show has multiple crimes happen in the show, and it is a children's show. And the Misfits start off our crime spree by looking at the holograms gear, and we're like, that looks pretty great. We're just gonna fucking take it. And then a high-speed chase pursues right
An
after
actual battle of the bands.
So, Jerica, I know you're a cartoon, but fucking listen for a second. Call the cops if you've seen the people's faces who have stolen your shit.
Nah, man.
It's a lot easier, and your shit won't be broken in the road as the Misfits throw it at your car.
It's rock and roll, baby. We're not calling the cops.
And also, JW, I'm so glad you said that Aja's like our driver, because holy shit, how is she our driver and she almost drives off a fucking cliff? Is she good at driving, or is it just like a hobby?
She's like a mechanic in the show, but I just loved anytime a show is like, because, you know, they get main character energy, and I'm like, I'm glad it's just not Jim driving. Like, I like that it was one of the other ones.
Yeah.
The worst part is that stupid fucking Aja on the cliff is like, let's get up. And you're just like, girl, no. Have you seen nothing? And it's literally Shayna yelling at her like, sit the hell down. We're on a cliff, woman.
I was half expecting the car to fly. Like, I was chitty chitty bang bang style, like just go off the cliff and start flying, and us all be like, I need that toy. I need the flying Rolls Royce right now in my home.
So this was a big thing. All of the commercial breaks have cliffhangers, like literally in this case, but also just in general. That was a joke just for you, Rich.
Thank you so much.
And because originally these episodes were in 7-minute chunks and they were between two quote unquote boy cartoons. So the idea was like something like G.I. Joe, a section of Jim, and then back to boy cartoon, because they were worried that boys wouldn't stick around unless
kidding.
But the opposite was true, and they were like, everyone loved it. All genders loved Jim.
We'll talk about that in history, yeah.
Yeah, and then so they had to then sandwich all of these together into a 5-part, like, to be continued big movie, because there was literally like, there were all these tiny episodes. So that's why every commercial break ends on a cliffhanger. Like, it's always got to be big.
Speaking of that cliffhanger too, this is like the first time I don't think I've seen a show have this in such a long time, but they have we'll be right back cards, and now back to gem cards. And it was like, I mean, what a blast from the past. I don't think any show's done that in probably 25 years.
Yeah. I think that was their way of stitching it together after the fact, because they're like, oh, it's going to be so weird to just cut and then come back, because it has to do that thing where it goes back about 10 seconds.
Programming TV is
so that makes sense, because it always does like rewind a little bit. It gives you like a little like lead into where you let off. So that makes sense if this is like being plucked and pieced in between other cartoons, that you would need to like wind it back a little bit.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit. Jem thinks on her feet, has a hologram show up because she knows Rio is gonna drive past that cliff. Sure, why not?
There's only one road in LA, baby.
And they are saved. Rio saves the day in this instance. We go to the foster house, and a very important scene happens. You're not really supposed to work foster children, yet the foster children are raising money to get a new refrigerator for the home. And this was just, I didn't even know what to do with this scene as a whole, personally. Look, but JW, explain yourself.
I just love that. First of all, I love how well the foster girls, the Starlight Girls as they're eventually called, the Starlight Girls are only $30 away from a new refrigerator. I'm like,
they're doing great.
You did great. This feels like this was a week that this happened. And you get all these characters. They're all named over the course of the series. They're all given individual personalities. But the main thing is, Ashley's the bad one. Blonde Ashley is mean and doesn't understand, while the rest of them are like, I'm walking dogs, I'm doing this. And Ashley's like, you know what I'm gonna do? Steal. Also, I hate all of you for no reason. She literally calls a new fridge stupid. I'm like, why?
I like all my food hot.
Yeah. Every other foster kid has gotten over the death of their parents. Ashley, you gotta get it together.
I'm never letting it go. And
the
then
scene is also 5 seconds long. It is in the middle of nothing. It is not even a B plot. It is an F plot of a thing.
And then you also get maybe the clearest PR and marketing lesson that I've ever seen given to children in all time, of like, here's why you don't look bad in the papers, because you just gave your adversary $1 million worth of publicity because you committed a crime. I'm like, number one, definitely did not admonish them for committing a crime. Definitely admonish them because it's bad for the rep, which is an insane concept to teach children. I don't know. Maybe
I also love that Pizzazz is like, who cares?
Well, Pizzazz has it right. Pizzazz has it right. committing crimes is punk as fuck. And if these girls are going to be the edgy, villainous band, then you have to act up. You got to smash a hotel room. You got to smash some gear. You got to be willing to get dirty. As the Misfits say, winning is everything. Let them be the bad band. Let them be bad.
And we get that awesome song of "Winning is Everything" well, which is. Go for it, JW.
Oh, no. One thing we haven't talked about is that when a music video happens, it's truly a music video. Like, it's got symbolic stuff. Mm-hmm. And this was clearly early pilot stuff because it's not great. It's like they're trying a thing and don't have the animation budget yet. My favorite moment of Winning is Everything is they just have a moment where Jerica is sitting on a podium labeled loser.
Who among us?
Because in their fantasy music video, Jerica's just seated casually on a podium that says loser.
I love a competition that would just force a runner-up to sit there like they don't have a choice.
This is the dream of so many boomers, to make kids sit on a pedestal that says loser when they don't come in first.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So rather than just listening to the Misfits' second song of this show,
when did they get rid of Glenn Danzig? Did that happen before or after the? Is that before or after?
Well, Rich, none of these characters have a mother.
Oh.
Eric decides he's going to stack the deck a little bit in this competition by hiring just this guy to rough up the house and steal some things.
And Eric's really clear on the phone. He's like, do not kill them.
just make them nervous.
Yeah.
I love that they added that in to be like, look, we can't just have them constantly trying to murder them. We have to be like, I know we'll get arrested for that. Do not kill them.
But let them know it was us.
Yeah. Because of these hijinks, and due to, as JW mentioned, the lack of electricity in the home, there is a knocked over gas lamp, and we watch as 4 adults blankly stare at a ravaging fire taking over a home.
And how are we going to get out of this one, guys?
Guess what? We cut to the end of the episode. Now, Max, I see in our show notes that you got a preview of the next episode. I did not get that.
If you watch this on Tubi, it says on the next episode of Gem, and then proceeds to give you basically the plot of the next 64 episodes of Gem in about 75 seconds.
Yeah, not only that, you get a preview of the next coming episode's music videos. You get 2 of their music videos, which were so confusing to me. Because I thought the episode kept going.
You meet Shayna's new boyfriend. Like, you get plot in this thing.
Well, that is our pilot. I would love to hear from each of you. What were some things that you loved about the show that we didn't talk about as we were discussing it?
Oh boy. I mean, how much more can you really say about the music in this? Like, it's like parallel universe storytelling, and it's very similar to like when we were talking about Scrubs, how all the parts of like JD's brain that were like making up side stories and stuff like that don't actually happen in the real universe, and you can't really tell what is actually going on. Like, did they all leave to go play? Did they write a song that's just about this particular moment? Who knows? It's just a fun little sidebar thing, and I don't know. I think they make so many songs, you guys, so many, and that's gonna be part of our podcast in just a couple moments, actually.
Max, what about you?
Gem is basically, what if Pygmalion was also an 80s action flick? And what I mean is that you have like eccentric millionaires and billionaires be like, we're going to hold a contest and the winner gets a mansion, and like lanterns get knocked over to start fires. But then also there's a guy named Zipper who says that making people nervous is my specialty, which I think like if your name is Zipper, that's a given, dude. Like,
yeah.
JW, what about you?
I also love the boldness that he had Zipper on the back of his jacket. He was like, everyone will know I committed this crime.
Yeah,
Most
because
people have
it's
zipper
normally
on
on the
of their
front.
Fantastic. I truly love that in 22 minutes. I'm sure y'all have discussed so many hour-long shows, hour-long pilots, most dramas of that. There is more setup in terms of plot and characters and all of this. And originally this is part of a 5-part like movie, right? So by the time you get to the end of this like movie, you're introduced to like 20 characters that are going to recur throughout the entire series. Howard Sands comes back, Mrs. Bailey, the house mother comes back, all of the Starlight Girls get featured episodes, all the bandmates personalities get fleshed out and made so much more unique. It was kind of weird to watch just this episode because I was like,
the narrowest part of the universe.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, eventually like Stormer, the dark blue-haired misfit, she's like the good one who becomes friends with Kimber, and there's this whole thing, and like, so it's kind of fascinating for me to go back and just watch this singular version and be like, wow, Christy Marks was trying to set up a true world, and she did so much in so little time.
Yeah, we didn't have that many episodes of this in the grand scheme. It's like it was a decent amount, but it was not, for having 20 characters all with their own subplots and side stories and bubble episodes and stuff like that. That's a lot to get done in 60 plus episodes. What were we going to say, Jeff?
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, things I loved. We talked about the music. I really do want to take a second to talk about the animation, because there's something about this like 80s style of animation that like just has me so nostalgic. And like, I know that we've made leaps and bounds in like how we animate, and there are some amazing animated series that are out there that we've even talked about on this show. But there's something about this that I just thought was really beautiful, and I love the colors that they used in it, and it's great. And yeah, just big fan of that.
And the quality only gets better too, which is cool. You can tell the moment they got a budget, and all of a sudden it's still got that like essence that you're talking about, Jeff, but like there's no animation errors, there's no like Max mentioned of lips just kind of not moving.
It's like that one season of The Simpsons where you go from like, oh yeah, this is like drawn in like an animation studio, and then you're like, who the fuck are these people? That was like that one season where everything changed.
Oh yeah, like all of a sudden it's in Flash.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
So, what are some wait a minute moments for you about this pilot? Or are there any?
Oh, I've got one.
Rich, go for it.
Arson. Arson in a children's cartoon. What are we doing here? It seems like they're setting up some violent crimes to happen in this show. Like I'm super excited about just like, the premise of a girl rock band, like, I don't know, trying to make it or solve crimes or figure out what the hell they're doing, and just like the sheer blatant violent crimes happening towards these kids is pretty insane to me.
Max, what about you?
I am aware that Jerrica is young. I am aware that she is grieving the loss of her father. But when you own 50% of your family's company and an outsider is trying to usurp power and have a corporate takeover, go to the fucking board. Like you have so much
She's
power
20.
here. She is letting Eric Raymond walk all over. And maybe I'm session pilled right now because I'm super into this final season. But like, use the power you have. You are the daughter of the head of Starlight Records, and if this guy is trying to muscle his way and take over your father's company, you have a voice here. I don't know. I feel like if someone had given her like proper business training, and I don't think it was the job of Synergy or the older woman at Starlight House to do, but like if somebody had given her the corporate briefing and training that she needed, this whole plot could have been avoided.
Yeah, what season does she get her MBA?
Yeah, just to speak on this is why we need business education in high schools. Just like very simple things so that students or children who are left with record companies are not tried to be forced out without due process. What I will say is, where are the service workers? Where are the police? Where are the firefighters? We just need them. We need their help. Jerica needs to learn 911. But I feel like, I know that there are some problems with certain service members in our society, but I feel like they could at least help out a little bit. Get a police report.
In
something.
LA? Nah.
We'll see. It's a small town. Remember, Rich, small town. She knows all 5 of the cops that work there.
We have one sheriff.
Also, I want to say, weirdly, Max, they solve this whole problem of her being too young because she hires a woman named Joni who's just like in charge of the business side of things.
Ooh.
And Joni's one characteristic is she is more Scottish than anyone's ever been.
Hell yes, because that's what this show needs.
I love that character because she's just constantly, I can't do an accent. It's constantly coming in and telling Jerica, you have to sign this. She's like, all right.
JW, is there any wait a minute moments about this pilot? I know this is a beloved property by you, but I want to say, if you could look at it from a slightly independent perspective.
For sure. I think the main thing to me that makes me be like, wait a minute about all of it is the way, the wish fulfillment. I get that it's like, most cartoons are kind of wish fulfillment. Don't you want to be Jim? Don't you want to be in the band? Don't you want to be whatever?
That sounds great.
But the thing is that, and it kind of comes up in the show later, but like the Misfits aren't bad at what they do. They're criminals, but like they're a legit band. And there's a part of me that's like, when Jerica came in and he was like, these are the Misfits, I feel like she should have been like, yeah, they seem great. Give me my money. Their song was fine. It seemed aggressive. But they can clearly afford motorcycles shaped like guitars. I feel like I'll make more money off of them.
The peak of luxury.
Like everyone's just a little bit too petty.
So I actually have one more question for y'all, because this is something that we got the intro song from Gem and the Holograms. We got the Only the Beginning song from Gem and the Holograms. We got 2 songs from the Misfits. Based off of the pilot alone, which band do you think is better?
Limp Lizard.
Forever.
JW, what about you?
I think my favorite songs, again, if it's just the episode, I think Only the Beginning's the best individual song in this episode. I think the Misfits songs are superior long term.
All right.
I think it's more fun I think it's fun that they wrote songs like that are titled Winning is Everything. To tell a kid, like, here's a hummable earworm that's just like, don't be a loser, is fun.
I love it.
Oh God. If I were a moody kid, I would absolutely be blasting Out of My Way in my tape deck headphones. Like that is just a straight driving rock song. Out of My Way feels like a precursor to everything that the Donnas did in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I also think it's kind of fun that the episode played a Misfits song first.
Yeah. Oh, that is interesting.
You would think that you would hear, I mean, you hear the theme song, which is mostly Jim, but like still I was like, oh, I forgot that you heard a Misfits song before. It makes sense. They're a band first.
We gotta sell Misfits toys too, JW.
Yeah, you gotta.
All right. So before we get into legacy of this show, there is no Daddy of the Week this week because all dads are dead in this show.
Oh.
So as far...
Somehow this segment got even more horrifying.
Yeah, I liked it better when it was horny.
So let's talk a little bit about let's talk about our in-flight question. We got one actually submitted that I loved. In-flight questions are submitted to us by our followers on Instagram. You can also leave us a voicemail.
By viewers
we'll talk
like
about
you.
that at the end. But this was actually a really fun one. If you were to choose any band or music act to have an animated series based off of them, what would it be? So I'm going to take Kiss out of the equation because there was
Good
a
idea.
quick Kiss animated TV show. It does lend itself to it so beautifully, but
and you
let's
forgot
just
about
take it out of the equation.
You forgot about their syndication overseas, French Kiss.
Good job. I'm also going to take the Beatles out of the equation as well, just
interesting.
to make it a little bit more difficult because there is some Beatles animated work out there.
I think there's a Monkeys one too. Like I feel like there's an
animated
cartoon at some point. Yeah.
All right, Max, I'm going to start with you as our little music expert.
Oh man, so I'm just trying to think specifically contemporary rock because it's not just the thing you see anymore. I could absolutely see every single member of the Foo Fighters appearing in Scooby-Doo cartoons, helping them solve crimes.
Sure.
Maybe I'm a little bit biased because they had that movie Studio 666 that came out during the pandemic as well, and that's why I'm thinking of them. I would also like an adult kind of BoJack Horseman style cartoon starring The National, where it's just like a bunch of like sad indie rockers just like making their way and drinking wine and kind of just saying one-liners that don't make a whole lot of sense, but the music's good, so you go see them live like a bunch of times anyways.
All right, JW as our guest, what are you thinking?
I feel like the easy answer, because it was kind of already cartoonish, is the Spice Girls.
Ooh, nice.
Because their names are already cartoonish, in that regard.
True.
So it'd be very easy to be like the Sporty Spice, Ginger Spice. All of them are like already very recognizably and branded. But I think that's because their creation was so market first.
That's 100%
but
true.
I'm going through it. If I wanted a successful cartoon, I would do the Spice Girls because I feel like that'd be fun. And everyone but Victoria Beckham would probably be available to voice themselves.
She's so busy.
All right, Rich, what about you?
So if we're talking about music that just creates insane drama that will keep you captivated, I'm thinking either Fleetwood Mac, it would not be a PG cartoon, or Oasis, because I think it would be very funny for the Gallagher brothers to just be playing pranks and, I don't know, ODing or who knows what they're doing. Just like
your Oasis cartoon is them pulling pranks, just being silly gooses.
Well, they are truly, they do seem like truly horrendous people to be around, but there is that one story about they did one of the very last episodes of MTV Unplugged, and who's the main one? Who's the main singer? Is it Noel? Anyways, the main guy got super drunk and really mad at everyone for the entire rehearsal leading up to it. And then once they got the entire crowd in there, once they really brought the production together and they were about to start recording, because it's a live concert, he didn't show up. And then, so they decided to keep recording without him. And he showed up in the back of the audience and started heckling the rest of the band while they were recording. And I know you're saying like zany pranks is not an Oasis thing. That's a zany prank. I like it a lot.
I think you need to have cartoon physics apply. Like Noel can bonk Liam with a mallet, and he gets like really small and then springs back up. Oh, you know what band should have a cartoon? Gorillas.
Max, you stole my joke. No. I'm so upset.
No,
I was about to say there are 3 answers that I have. One is the obvious Gorillas. 2 is I just look at bands like Green Day and bands like Queen, where a lot of their albums are very story based and story-esque, and like that is a season right there of a cartoon. It might not be the most children appropriate cartoon, but it's a cartoon. And I never said it had to be sell toys.
Are you talking about like Green Day storytelling, like American Idiot, or the songs about like smoking weed and masturbating on the couch?
All stories are stories. It's just
okay. So taking it now from the perspective of what an 80s cartoon would do, I have 2 additional answers.
Yes.
So Beastie Boys, but they can transform into Beast. So they have powers.
Hell yes.
They are superheroes.
Hell yes.
And similarly, Cobra Starship, everything's the same except they fly around the galaxy. And what a Cobra Starship!
That's so
amazing.
True. That's so right.
Well, I absolutely love this in-flight question. Thank you so much for it. We'll talk a little bit more about how to submit those at the end of the episode. Let's talk a little bit about legacy of this show. There were 3 seasons of this show and 65 episodes. At one point, it was rated the #1 cartoon series by Nielsen, and that was in 1985 and 1987, and it had 2.5 million weekly viewers, making it the 3rd most watched children's television program amongst everything.
Wow.
The show aired in multiple countries, including Australia, Canada, the UK, Netherlands, Italy, France, and West Germany. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. The show did receive 2 nominations for Young Artist Awards, but actually won neither of them, surprisingly, which was like sort of... Genuinely, I was surprised.
Well, Geoff, you forgot about their really long feature called Uncut Gem?
That's some winning. Justice for gems. I mean, there are a ton of things that I could talk about in regards to the show's revival and as a property. JW talked a little bit about the DVDs. The show returned actually to syndication between 2011 and 2015. Thanks to the Discovery Network. It was also available on Netflix for a small period of time. Hasbro and Integrity Toys both sold collector's editions of the dolls in 2011 and 2012. They sold out within like seconds.
They're so expensive. They're each like $300 now, and I got none of them. I was devastated. Integrity Toys is expensive high-end dolls already.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful.
But
they're
yeah,
beautiful collector's items. There was a live-action movie. I was about to say
about that.
We don't really talk about that.
No, there wasn't.
It was directed by John M. Chu of Crazy Rich Asians fame, which is wild. And Aubrey Peoples starred as Jem. There is a soundtrack that is available to that as well. But I think that really, reviewing the legacy of this show lives on via fans like JW, right? Like people truly love and just like honor this show so often that
keeping the dream alive.
One thing I want to mention too, because that was a great overview of the legacy of the show, but the one piece that I want to add is that IDW came out with a comic series that's extremely good. It's ended. It's like a complete they got to end it on their own terms though, and it's a complete final one, and they did some cool stuff. Like in the 2nd season they add a Latina hologram named Rhea, and Christy Marks wanted to add, she wanted to diversify the Misfits as well. I think she wanted to add an African American Misfit, and the network was like, no, the only white people can be evil on our show. And
that's a good reason.
They said, but she was like, I don't know if you're doing what you think you're doing, but okay. They said she can be British or Australian. And so they made a British misfit named Jeddah, but then the IDW comics do something cool where it's Jeddah is a black character who is also British. So they combine the legacy of the show with Christy Marks' original intent. And I was like, so the comics were clearly made from a place of love. They also add a misfit who's a trans woman. And it's a really
so cool.
And also I love that she's fucking evil. Her name's Blaze. And I'm like, yeah, I love that she's a misfit. Like they really did that. Yeah. And the comics are beautifully illustrated. I own all but one. Randomly I don't own like issue 6 or whatever, but they're really well done, and the people who were involved were clearly fans of the property, which was really nice.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Well,
because the movie sucked. The movie was terrible. So I'm glad that's not like the last thing that exists.
Rich, it is time for your game of the week.
Yes. Okay, JW, I can see you stretching and warming up in your little box over there. We have put together a little bit of a Name That Tune for the Gem universe, and I have picked 4 songs at random. They are all available on a very long playlist on YouTube, and they're all separated. They don't even do it by episode; they just do it by number in which it appeared on the show, which is very fascinating. But Geoff actually has some of the clips for you right now, and I wanted to see if you could guess from. I don't know. I think each clip is about 10 seconds long, maybe a little bit more. What song from Gem and the Holograms it is?
So, like the title of the song, that's what I'm guessing is the title.
Yes. If you want to go extra bonus points and drop the episode name in there too, you can. But that's
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
You can drop the which band sung it as well if you'd like.
That all of you will know.
I know I've been coming up a little short. I know I've been coming up a little short in Game of the Week the last few weeks, but I think this is my rebound week. I think this is the week
you got this one.
Yeah, I think I got it, guys. I'm gonna give it a try.
All right, ready?
Can't believe you didn't get Randy Travis.
It is.
It's I Like Your Style.
Oh my god, that was amazing.
By the Misfits. And it's the you heard that cool saxophone? It's the very first episode with Jeddah, the new British Misfit, because her whole deal is playing saxophone, so they started adding saxophone solos to the Misfits.
Oh my god, we got a history lesson
as
well.
It's literally
amazing.
Let me give you a little context for this scene. Jeddah's playing by herself. She does not have a work visa. So Pizzazz is like, come play for our band and we'll keep you in the country. And I'm like, and she's like, you got it. Like, all right.
Oh my god. All right. Let's go after this second song.
Here we are. Pulling out of the station. Here we go. Without a moment's hesitation. Here we come.
We're Off and Running, also by the Misfits.
There you go.
In the context of this, Jim and Holograms are doing a fashion book, and the Misfits are trying to do a fashion book, but can't afford camera people because no one will work with them, so they're taking their own photos on a roller coaster.
Oh my god, this is so impressive.
They're signed to a massive label. What is Starlight Records doing?
Because the Misfits, no one will work with them because they keep breaking the cameras because they get mad at the camera people.
Oh.
Jim and the Holograms have like a full studio or whatever.
All right, let's go with clip number 3.
Other girls play helpless and coy.
GW already knows it.
Designing Woman.
Yes.
Another Misfits banger, and this is when Pizzazz is threatening Shayna. Shayna's the fashion designer of the Holograms, you'll find out, and she's basically like, "You're not gonna win." And it's great because she has this line in the song where she's like, "Other women stay home all day." Living their life, just flitting away. And she talks about them clipping coupons and how that's a bad thing. And I'm like, what a wild pull to be like, don't clip coupons.
Oh, wait, it's not about the Delta Burke, Gene Smart, CBS sitcom Designing Women from the 80s?
It is famously
Sadly,
not
no.
that one. Oh my god, JW,
right,
3 for 3
we got
already.
One last one, JW.
The latest word. Rock and roll is forever.
Yes.
Yep.
Boom.
Oh my god.
Well, JW,
just so people understand, just so people understand how impressive this is, there are 187 songs in the entirety of the Gem universe. That is, I think, more than the new Mac DeMarco album, which has like 100.
Well, that might have been one of the most impressive things we'll ever see on this podcast.
That was so
and I
crazy.
think we might have to retire Rich's game of the week.
That was unbelievable.
Well, Rich, thank you for one of the most amazing things I have ever seen with my own eyes.
Thank you, JW.
Before our plane or gemmobile comes to a land, I have 2 questions for each of you. And that is, do you think this show could be remade today? And / would you continue watching this version of the show? JW, I'm gonna just start with you.
I know the second. You know the second answer. I've proven that. I think a reboot of this could be possible. I would want it to still take place in the 80s. I feel like the magical realism of the hologram and all that technology and the fashion and fun and vibrance of it only takes place in the 80s. Those comics I mentioned try to take place in present day, and that's the least fun part about it. Like, it just, the hologram stuff didn't, it's just like, yeah, we have fucking cell phones now. Like, I don't know, it just didn't matter as much. So yes, reboot, but only if it's period piece.
And we know you will continue watching this show as you're
Quite
for the
so.
audience. I don't think we mentioned this. JW is wearing a Gem and the Holograms t-shirt right now. It is magnificent, and I love every bit of it. Rich, as our resident hater, what do you think about this show and the answers to my 2 questions for you?
Look, I'm definitely giving it a little bit more. Like, obviously, it is geared towards a younger audience, which is totally cool. I also a lot of my cartoon preferences when I was a kid seemed to borderline on the absurd. So a lot of like Angry Beavers and Rocko's Modern Life and stuff like that. So I feel like my sense of humor is a little bit like different from this, and it maybe wasn't necessarily what I was looking for as a cartoon as a kid. But I'm absolutely going reboot on this, and like you said, JW, it has to not be in present day because, like, especially with the popularity of like the Captain Marvel movie, Wonder Woman 1984. Some other properties in Yellow Jackets, like a lot of the 80s and 90s nostalgia is so big right now, you kind of need it to make that happen. So I feel like that would, if someone wants to go for another cool money grab, I'll watch it. I'm down.
And Max, what about you?
Really quick, I thought of another one for the cartoon bands question from earlier.
Yes,
it's an animated 2 chains, and his 2 chains work like the gem earrings, and he can make holograms when he presses his chains.
Love it.
Ooh.
Oh, sold.
What
Absolutely
I'm
love it.
pitching is just gem and the holograms, but with 2 chains. Anyway, to the real question at hand. Do
Take my
I
money.
think this will be
Take
made
my money.
today? I think if we're rebooting this as is, I don't see it finding the same like children's audience nowadays. I love the aesthetics of it. I love this like 80s mall culture and the stuff we saw from Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, and like, you know, the Pat Benatar girls. But I don't think those aesthetics would find the same children's audience today. And I think that if you try to make it a 2023 aesthetic show, then it's not Gem and the Holograms. It loses all of the wow factor that made this show so fun. So for me, it's a no. I had a hoot watching this. JW, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. This was a huge blank spot for me, but I'm going to take what I got from today, and I'm going to let it rest at that. I don't think I would continue watching this series personally.
I love the idea that to you this show ends with the fire, and you're like, and they died. These band mates fully died in a house of 9 foster children.
It's like the end of The Sopranos. It just ends. It's just cut out.
That's what makes this one record so legendary, is that they all died in a fire.
Oh my god. Imagine being a band whose only song you ever released was called Only the Beginning.
Oh my god.
So poetic. So poetic.
Irony.
Yeah, no,
So-
no, that's what they're explaining. You only get the beginning.
So to round us out, as far as rebooting this, 100%, I think you all have hit it on the nail on the head. As far as making sure that this stays in the 80s, I would not be surprised if a certain Netflix executive saw how well potentially the Greta Gerwig Barbie movie does and says, let's try one more time with this Gem and the Holograms bit. and Netflix has been able to have some success with animation.
I think She-Ra is a reboot that people consider successful.
She-Ra was great. I think that there's also, like, you can see the Big Mouth and Human Resources universe doing fantastic as well. This probably is not for children, in all honesty. This is more likely for adults or, like, new parents, in all honesty. But, like, cool. Why not? But I'll take it. I will wear all of the gear.
When one of us learns a Ted Sarandos impression, we'll dive that in once the strike is over.
Yeah. As far as continuing to watch this show, I have this category of shows that we have watched where I'm gonna watch an episode one-off. Like if I'm just in a very specific mood. Love Boat fits in that perfectly. Everybody Loves Raymond fits in that as well. This fits in that perfectly because I don't think I could just go and be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch 5 hours of Gem and the Holograms because I think I'll go insane. Yeah. But what I think I can absolutely do is if I'm just sitting down before, I go out to dinner or something and there's 22 minutes, holy shit, is this going to be pulled up and I'm going to watch an episode of this?
And this is also one of those shows that's it's got a continuing plot line, and like I said, they add characters, but there's episodes like it's still a cartoon show. There's an episode where Jim saves the president. Like,
oh hell yeah, I'm watching that.
And there's also just one that's fully like business negotiations for 22 minutes, and you're like, well, we're doing everything with this.
That's good. That's good. Mickey Mouse fighting Hitler energy. I love that. Of she's saving the president now.
That's the beauty of watching cartoons as a man in his 30s is that you can jump in at any point and still get some joy from it. With that being said, our plane has landed. And before we sign off, gentlemen, I'd love to hear where we can find you. JW, I would love to hear where we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned early in the episode, I do an episode by episode recap with my two co-hosts, Lex and Hannah Jane, called Pod Ledom. If you're a fan of Top Model, that joke will probably make sense to you. We just completed the 19th cycle of the show. And so we only have 5 seasons left, or about a year's worth of content. And I don't mind saying that we're the highest rated and most popular ANTM podcast.
Hell yeah.
So we're very, very lucky that we came right at this 2 months or so before the pandemic, and then they released every episode in the first month of the pandemic.
And that is when I started watching every episode of
we hit our viewership like multiplied by 10. So again, that's Pod Ledom, and anywhere you find your podcast.
That's amazing.
Rich, where can we find you?
You can find me seeing if I have $600 in my bank account for a keytar. And you can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. And you can find Max and my sketch comedy at Dadwagon Comedy on TikTok.
Max, what about you?
I'm actually about to get out on the road, so you can catch me in a city near you as the merch manager for the Limp Lizards. You can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me trying to figure out whether or not a guitar motorcycle is street legal. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at RunJeffRun. You can find the TV Pilots License on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Pilots License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can email us at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Thanks again to JW for coming on the show. This was amazing. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for sneak previews of some of the stuff that we have coming out soon. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, it's only the beginning.